Good. Like, let's keep talking. And yeah, I want you to record it.
Oh yeah, all right, cool. So I got your consent. That's all I really needed.
Like what we're talking about, like although like yeah, I'm talking to you about something. It's like, all right, cool. I need to realign my chakras, of which I told the reason why. Maybe somebody else needs to.
it's a definitely, it's definitely a lot of people, who don't know about it or who know somewhat about it and just don't know what to expect or even how to go about it. So there's many approaches, but to keep it simple and straight to the point. So what you tend to experience when your chakras are like out of whack, or the term misaligned, you start experiencing like random misfires in your life, like whether it's emotions or certain areas are really hurt. But those chakras are specific placements within your aura or within your vessel that can hinder or aid your ability to continue forward with ease or dis-ease. So by aligning your chakras or releasing or healing your chakras, what you start to do is you start to free yourself. So your true nature starts to come out. Like mine, for example, when I started working on my chakras initially, how it looked wasn't how the result came about wasn't how the books would say. Before I was like super, super active and doing things. Now I'm more laid back, like, look, let's not worry about it. It's gonna work out.
But I want to ask you, why would you focus more on the book aspect versus how you felt, like your initial feeling of it?
Oh, that's simple. So the book aspect, because I focus on the book aspect because whenever I would go into meditation and I would just have all these questions. So I had to satisfy the questions that were coming about. So the book aspect gave me a certain amount of logic or a certain amount of information to where I felt confident when I got ready to do said meditation or to tackle whatever chakra I was doing for that thing. So like when I read a book on chakras, it's just me getting a basic understanding or a basic template. And then after that, it's up to me to experience that in my own way. Coincidentally, a lot of my experiences, they'll come through my dreams, answers, or I start to see a lot of correspondences or synchronicities in my day-to-day life. So it makes things easier. It does take a little time just because, obviously we have lives, so we have things speaking over what our spirit is saying. But that's the point of meditation, to quiet your mind and to be able to quiet your mind during the day so that way you can hear that voice speak, your own spirit speak, to be specific. So you can hear your own spirit speak to you. So when your spirit is telling you, hey, do this, you know what it sounds like, or you know what it feels like, and you know which action direction to take to accomplish that goal. So overall,
So how do you know it's your spirit speaking and not your ego?
oh, for me, that's very simple. At first, it was trial and error because, you can have a thought or a certain feeling. You'd be like, yeah, that's my spirit speaking. Let's say the defining factor was, for me, it was a combination of the emotional aspect in my sacral chakra, my second chakra, that gut feeling. I enhanced that. So once that came, once I got good with that, as far as, yeah, this is the right choice, I would make certain sounds. Like, when someone says something to you, like you don't need to respond with words, but you'll make a sound. You'll be like, that sounds right. That's it. That's it. Like we do it all the time, but we don't necessarily pay it any mind depending on what's actually on our mind versus that. But no, I use that as my guide tool, and that's always coming from within. Always coming from within. And then there are times to where it'll audibly project itself to where I'll actually start to become clairaudience, as they would say. I'll start to audibly hear certain things, certain key phrases. So that's that at the basic level, because to go in depth, it won't do any good to the person who hasn't done it at all.
So when you say certain key phrases, what do you mean?
Key phrases is just the way to describe what's taking place so that the person of either like mind or the person of unlike mind has something to grasp so that way they can understand it. So when they do experience, there's a lot of this, there was a lot of keywords and key phrases that people would use along my journey thus far that I didn't necessarily understand until I experienced it. Then from then on, it was just uphill. Well,
Can
now
you give me an example?
of that, oh yeah, like whenever people would talk about Kundalini, like that's all right. Kundalini, what is Kundalini? You would hear, oh, it's the life force energy. Kundalini ain't nothing but the natural energy that rules and flows through any and everything. That's all Kundalini is. Now, Kundalini inside of our bodies, when we raise it, you start activating and waking up your hidden self. You start waking up that hidden self. So when you're starting to have these spiritual experiences, you start getting answers. So you get feedback. So the Kundalini is nothing more than your hidden self waking up through the spinal system all the way up to the back of to the medulla oblongata in the back of your head, to the third eye, and even protruding out of the crown chakra.
So when you talk about the third eye, what exactly is a third eye?
Oh man, you can call it many things. The third eye, what I experienced, the third eye is just, it's kind of like, we'll put it like this. The third eye is like you're talking to your God self, or your God self is coming online. So when I started doing all my meditations on my third eye, that's when I started getting a lot of answers. So when I would ask a question, I would get it in my dream. Like I would live it out, or my spirit would tell me as I'm asleep what answers were that I had asked to the question. So with that being said, my always go to is, if you're not getting a lot of answers that you asked for, or you got none, chances are you probably haven't started the work, the pineal work. Like that was my first step. I started pineal work.
What is that? Pineal?
Pineal is the third eye. So pineal, they have books like the pineal's like an image would be like a pine cone. It would be like a pineapple, but basically that's the primary gateway of you communicating with entities and spirits. They call it your third eye. So basically in the center of your forehead, or some other books describe it as being in the frontal lobe. Regardless, when you activate this, there's a telltale sign that this is activated or stimulated. And that's very simple to determine, because whenever I've done my pineal activity, I felt literally between the middle of the brow on my face, I felt it pulsating. And that's ideally what you want. You want it to pulsate. That's how you know it's active. To know anything is active, it gives off a signal. To know your lights are on, you have to see lights. To know your bills are paid, obviously you'll see some type of notification. To know you're sick, your body will give you some type of notification. So to know your pineal is on, and to know your system turns on, your system is turned on, your pineal starts to vibrate. Whether it's pressure, too much pressure, too less pressure, you'll feel some type of vibration naturally. Like that will happen.
Right.
So a lot of people, they just don't know how to nurture this and go about it. And it's very simple. So getting into chakras, but yeah, not even chakras, but spiritual work, it just requires, it's really the only thing you need is yourself. When it comes to candles and incense, those are all tools. And there's not just one way to go about it, but there's a way I go about it to where I've gotten results. And that's the way I always share with other people who are interested in how they choose to go about their spirituality.
So from a personal standpoint, how did you come about the results? Like, what did you do?
Oh man, that was creepy. It was kind of creepy because I was unsure at first of what I was experiencing, and there was a lot of doubt, because it's like there's no way this is real, and I'll obviously explain what I'm getting at. So
There will always be doubt, mainly because when us as people, like us as human beings, us growing up, like you learn certain things, and to get to the point to where you step away from beliefs that you've been for less of better terms, I guess, programmed to believe in. Like, to step away from it has to always be scary, right?
That's true, and that's actually a big part of it. I'm glad you said that, because if you're not stepping away from a religion, truth is, it's not the end of the world for you. Because if you're in the position to where, hey, religion is working for me, my advice is great, good for you. Good for you. I'm not mad at you, but I stepped away from my religion because, for one, I wasn't getting any results, and I always still felt this is not where I'm supposed to be. Like, I knew it was a stepping stone, but ultimately I knew this isn't it. I didn't get results until I actually left Christianity. And that came with a lot of conflict, internal conflict, not outside conflict. It was always internal. And that was based upon what was repetitiously taught to me growing up.
Right, because you was like really big into it.
Oh yeah, I was big into it. But at the same time, even though I was big into it, and most people admit this, they're not following or doing what they say. This spirituality, like, I don't have a name for it, but dealing with yourself by spiritual means, just getting to know yourself, you start to really understand what goes on around you, and you'll be surprised how much your awareness picks up as an individual. So all in all, like, I recommend anybody, like, if you're afraid to step into the arena, don't base it off what you hear on TV and what you've seen on TV. That's the biggest deception and miscommunicative thing via you and your spirit you can never experience of all
Outside
time.
of TV, but just what you see and like what you hear around, like people around you.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, because like, you have people around you who just have an idea but haven't experienced it, or who's not even actually in it. They just have something to say about it. Like, those people are the people that's like, to clearly identify those people, all you have to do is ask them, well, what have you done to know that for sure for yourself, to know that thing is real or that thing is evil for yourself? Because since I've been doing this, not dabbling, doing this, admitted, I haven't gotten any of those negative stories and negative impacts that, you know, certain people speak about. It's always been something that was hidden, that was revealed, and it was always meaningful and bountiful, whether it was informative or whether it was monetary gain, or there's a lot of spiritual abundance by way of getting a lot of answers or doing a lot of astral travel.
Not to mention, you get like a lot of when you bring it on to like other people, when it comes to more religious, from like a more religious aspect versus spiritual.
And
It's more like, oh, like paganistic, like you're like the wrong person, like you shouldn't be doing this and that and all that.
And those are the people who saying, the ones that say you shouldn't be doing it are the ones who, for one, there's fear. There's fear there, and two, there's this sense of control. They're used to doing a certain thing a certain way, and they're not willing to change. Those who are willing to change and have an open mind, those are the ones who will experience it. And it's not hard. You just start doing stuff in that area. Just like if you're at your job and there's a new position and you don't know about it, yeah, fear's there, obviously, being part of human nature. But once you start doing stuff in that area, then you start experiencing what that position is truly about. Same principle, same thing applies. Until you start doing it, then you be the judge for yourself.
So, yeah. So about the question I asked you earlier, how do you get to a point to where you need to realign, or you feel like you need to realign your chakras, like as far as like baths or rituals or all that, like you need to do?
Oh man, that's, to keep it very simple, getting to that point for me at the time, it was, I felt as if I tried everything else but those things. So once I started experimenting and doing things with candle magic, libations, taking my own spiritual
Wait,
baths.
hold on. What made you scared of it at first?
Just because the program I had with religion, it was like, don't do that. Because that was the initial. That's why I didn't do it. Like, I had no earthly control over that at first until I got away from the voices or the people telling me, don't do that, don't do this. As I graduated through life, those people weren't there, so those voices weren't there. So naturally, my spirit was like, we should try this by way of, ooh, feel like I need to do this. So you have that feeling of you need, that's your own spirit, that's your intuitive thought coming online. That's pretty much it. Like it's not very hard. It's not very hard. It's just it deals with observation really. Because when you actually like, if you actually sit down with yourself and you reflect or just think things out or focus things out through yourself, you'll see the pattern that you've been doing or living. If you agree with it, obviously stay on that path. If you don't, then obviously it's speaking in its own way loud enough to say, hey, it's time to change. So if it's saying it's time to change and what follows behind that, nothing's going your way, that's it. That's your own spirit telling you, hey, it's time for us to make a change. Just happened. How did I know I was supposed to go and start doing these spiritual practices? Because my spirit took a liking to them. I liked them. I was like, ooh, that seems interesting. Oh, maybe I should try that. And then I went and did that. There was always something indicating. It was always different from the general populace, the general standard. It was always something just exciting. So I was always excited. Like I should do that. Obviously now when I got ready to do it, or when I was doing it, it wasn't like that. It was, man, how do I do this? Like I want to experience what people are experiencing, but I want to experience it my own way. So the more I did it with anything else, the more you get better at it. So the more I did it, then I was starting to realize, oh, that's what that means. That's what this means. So I got confident. I built up my level of confidence, because if you haven't done it, the level of confidence, that the true actual level of confidence is going to be there. We're not talking about initially faking it until you're making it. Like we're talking about actually getting results and you're being confident in the results that you're
getting. That's real.
Exactly. I mean, because like if I'm telling you something I haven't done before, I'm just giving you my opinion. But if I tell you something and I've actually done it, I'm giving you my experience.
Right. So, what I will ask, close it on this.
All right.
But what I will ask is, so when it comes to the idea of like astral travel, but outside of that, but actually, yeah, I don't remember the second question. But when it comes to astral travel, I remember. So when it comes to a point to where you're like, oh, like I need to step away from this, or like the idea of being more religious versus spiritual.
Oh, that's easy. That's very easy to answer. You'll come to the point, when you've fit, like when you're like, enough is enough. That's the point you come to. You like, enough is enough, and usually follow behind that, something has to change.
But how do you block that fear?
You don't. You face it. The fear is the next level that you have to pass through in order to go, obviously, to that next level. Because you're here to take away the disillusion. You're here to dilute that illusion. You're here to prove that, hey, that's not real. Come to find out, that's just what somebody said based off of their own fears, and they stopped. Because when you go through it, it'll be something completely different. Guaranteed that it'll be something completely different based off your own experience. A lot of people who are fearful, they'll just talk about it or talk down about it. They won't actually do it.
So like how if you brought this to like some like other religion, they'll be like, oh, that's blasphemy type of thing. Or no.
Exactly. Hence why, okay, so it's like, what's the point of even doing that? That's a mass of people or a specific person. They already have their ideology and mind set up. They're not even open. They're saying already that they already somewhat believe in spiritual experiences because of these books, but at the same time, this is their contradiction. Oh, I can't do that because I'm not God. Or I can't do that because I'm only a humble servant. And it's like, well, why can't you? Who's telling you you can't? Like, is that person alive? Like, you got to look at this from, you got to really look at this like, well, who's telling you? Where's that guy at? Point him out for me. Like, I want to talk with that guy, not with just what this book is saying. Because a lot of the spiritual work I've done, the book will say, hey, do this at this time and do that at that time. And I'm like, in reality, I'm like, look, this whole time thing, I'm out of that. I need this now. Whether it's monetary gain, whether it's answers, I need this now.
Right.
Like, who's the guy telling me I can't get the answer now? Which I've proven to myself I can. So when you read books, you're getting that person's perspective. You're gonna always get that person's perspective. Now, it doesn't mean they're wrong. You're just getting their story. You're getting their story and what they did on their journey. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But to let that be the ruling factor of your life, then you're not being as free as you like. You get the information and you apply it your own way. So if you got instructions on how to do a ritual, not only just add your own, but if you have the concept of what a ritual is, make up your own. Go from there.
So what exactly is a ritual?
A ritual, in all honesty, is just a way for you to communicate with your subconscious. So you can start doing things unconsciously. Your subconscious is going to create your reality. So let's say you wanted a house. So you went and your ritual was, hey, I want to get a house. So you have this idea of getting a house with the intention of getting a house. So whatever tools you decide to bring into the ritual, utilize for the ritual, whether it be via incense or candles, or I like to draw. Or drawing, whatever picture you decide to draw, you can use that. So when you do the ritual, you're gonna see yourself, because I do a lot of, I visualize. So you can visualize with your eyes open or closed, doesn't matter. You're gonna visualize yourself with whatever tools you have, you working with those tools and making that a reality. So you're gonna touch, see, taste, feel, and hear that whole experience. And then you'll do that for how many ever days you think is a good idea, like, or you feel it's a good idea, because that's all coming from you. So step 2 of the process comes, you live it out. So what happens unconsciously, you're already making the right decisions and the right moves to now make that cause active. So now you're playing out the effect, or you're going to witness the effect at a later period or sooner or later. But you've already programmed, you hardwired yourself. You input your intention, and you're getting that output via when you're obviously walking in your conscious state. So that's the backdrop, plain and simple, how a ritual works and how it deals with your mind. You'll be like, one day, well, how did that happen? I had that happen a lot. I'd be like, oh yeah, I visualized that, or I meditated that, or I did a ritual for that. And I'm literally living in that moment at this time. I mean, it's all simple, but I can tell you right now what holds a lot of people up. It's the uncertainty. Because the question I even had was, does this work? Does it really work? Like, what might expect? The thing is, you take off expectations and you live it out. So you have your attention and you let what's supposed to happen, and then you control and order that in your waking life. You control
So
it.
It's more like, this is what I want versus this is what I expect.
Exactly. But you say, this is what I have, not necessarily what I want. Because when you go to meditate, you already experience having yourself, we already experience having it. So you're telling your own mind, this already exists and I do have it and it is attainable. So that's
well, I always say this is what I want, because us as people, like, logically, we go for what we want more than what we need.
Cancel out the want and the need and go with this is what I have, because you're seeing it in the there. Want dictates there's a later or there's a tomorrow, when there's only now. There can only be now, and you experience now in moments. So when I happen to maybe talk to you next week, we're going to have a now moment. We're not going to have a later moment. No, it's going to be now, because that's going to be the present. Now you use your imagination to live in the now and bring things from the future to you for the next now. That's all you're doing. You're actually, in a better sense, you're actually controlling your own space and your own time. By that, when you go start to live out your day-to-day life after you do a ritual, you're just like, wow, all this stuff is really coming together. How did this happen? Because you programmed your mind to do it. So your body's follow. So wherever your mind is, your body's going to follow, whether you aware of it consciously or unconsciously. But it's all coming from the subconscious.
So ultimately, like, the mind is
all,
as I say, the most powerful weapon.
Oh, it is. It is. The mind is the most powerful weapon. I can tell you a story about that. So when I was actually enhancing my psychic abilities, I was in massage school, and we had a very cool teacher, and I was like, I bet I can get her to just put her leg on the table. What teacher do you see just randomly putting her leg on the table or their leg on the table, his or her? You don't see that. I've never just seen that. Even in massage school, that doesn't happen. The only time that happens is when they happen to get on the table and they want us to massage a certain area to demonstrate something. But this teacher, one day, I was just sitting in class and I said, you know what? I'm going to shoot my own energy at her or command at her, and she's going to do it. So, obviously, as I'm doing this, I finally meet her. Well, I see her again after like 3 weeks. So I'm in class, and I'm like, I visualize all this high energy rising up through my spine, or raising all this Kundalini energy projecting out of my eyes. But with the command I had flying out my eyes, what that energy was, put your leg on the table. Put your leg. I kept saying that repetitiously.
What type of energy?
Kundalini. Basically, your prana, life force energy. It's basically natural energy. It's just called different names, but it's basically the energy of the cosmos. So the natural energy that's actually animating us. But to get to the point, long story short, she eventually, during that 1 hour class period, she just randomly throws her leg up on the table. And she says, I didn't know I could do that. And in my head, I'm like, shit, I didn't know I could do that. So, you know what I'm saying? I kept it light. I kept it fun, because it was the things I was just testing out, because I had to prove it. And that's what you do. You're here to prove what you can do, not what you can't do. Because you're going to tell yourself what you can't do a lot of the times until you start gaining more confidence in yourself or whatever it is that you're doing. Then,
like, ideally, like, at the end of the day, like, if you don't see it, you won't believe it.
That's true. That's true. And it's hard for me to explain that. Let's say, like, I can't really explain that to blind people or to deaf people. I'm sorry. That's something I can't explain, because I'm experiencing still with all 5 of my senses and my sensories of what it is I can do and what it is I do with those.
You can't explain it to, like, anybody, because at the end of the day, you are who you are. And only certain people can see it. Very true.
Yeah. The willing. Because if you want, I'm going to use this term, if you want it to happen or you really desire it, then you're going to experience it. The only thing you have to do is just keep doing it until something happens. You got to keep doing it until you see a result. So, like, when I got ready to talk to some of my ancestors or some of the guides, there was some days it was a very lengthy process, to where it took, like, sometimes it took months, other times it took days, and other times it could just take minutes. It just depends on how focused you are in that moment and how much you're willing to just, like, I know this is coming. Let me put everything into this moment to make this happen.
So when it comes to trying to focus on your ancestors and talk to them, and also building a shrine for them, how do you go about that aspect?
Oh man, there's so many ways you can go about it. Like, I'll keep it simple. So obviously include the 4 elements. These 4 elements represent the 4 directions of which they say energy comes through and from you. So north, south, east, and west. So you're basically encompassing 360. So fire, air, water, earth, things you would like to have on your altar. So sometimes I won't have all of those there because I've experienced to where I could talk to a deceased or a relative that's passed on. I've done it with just a candle, didn't have the water, but it doesn't help. I mean, it helps, but it's going to go off your mind after a while. So for my grandmother, when I talked to her, I normally would give her favorite wine. I would ask her what she liked to eat, and then I would get the cravings, and I would put that on the altar. Obviously, I would help myself to the meal. So I typically put a picture up there. I put a picture on my altar with her, and then I gave her I made her favorite meal, and then I would just give her favorite drink. I did that for a while, and then, she would start to show up in my dreams. So the altar is a gateway for these energies to pass through. So initially when I didn't have an altar, I had a lot going on up top. Like, it wasn't negative. It was just do this, do that. Like, it was a lot of voices that interrupted me as well whenever I meditated. But once I created the altar and then I went into meditation, those voices were just quiet. Like, they had a place to go. Like, I placed them in the area. That was a sacred space. So I facilitated an area for them, whether it was the guides or the ancestors, to where I won't be disrupted when I'm meditating. So now when I go to meditate, let's say I want to talk to Ganesha, believe it or not, I'll see Ganesha's face, and it'll be like, well, this is what we're about. Then I say what I'm about to say, like, Ganesha, well, this is what we're about to do. And then before I know it, within that week, because I like to clock everything at least a week at a time. I give myself a week. If it's a very short thing, I give myself a week, and I say, hey, I need confirmations. So Ganesha, or whatever deity or ancestor I'm dealing with, they'll give me confirmations. And how I recognize the confirmations, they'll always show me an attribute that they have, or it'll be something could be very repetitive that week, and it always lead me to get the answer or to accomplish a certain task or goal.
But hold on, why say Ganesha and not go direct?
Just because I was in the mood of working with the deities and seeing, I was exploring that arena and seeing how that worked with the deities. And I'll say that part I'm about to say later. I'll say that for later. But really, ultimately, I was doing it just to see, what type of feedback I got, to see how real it was for me, really. That's why I would use Ganesha. Ganesha is associated with wisdom and removing obstacles. So I did have obstacles, but also the wisdom that was hidden, that was there, that I had to uncover. Dealing with Ganesha, I was actually able to get the wisdom to overcome certain obstacles I was facing.
So it's like people like listening in and everything. Like, who is Ganesha?
Who is Ganesha? Ganesha, he's an elephant deity, and if I'm not mistaken, he's from he's the son of Shiva, and I want to say Kali. I could be mistaken because I don't know off the top of my head. But anyway, these deities are nothing but descriptions of energies or dormant energies that are inside you. So when I got called Shango, I actually saw the attributes of Shango in myself, which meant that if you have those attributes in you, and you're acting like that, then that means you already became that thing. For somebody else to tell me that without me realizing that on my own means I already became that. And my life showed that. He was a warrior. I served in the military. He was very aggressive and assertive. That's what comes along in the military, but it also is what carried on my work. Can be charismatic. Yeah, that's what happens. He had many wives. I mean, obviously, I didn't have many wives, but I attract many people. So, well, that's ultimately what you look at when you go to read about these deities.
But hold on. With everything that you were just talking about,
Yeah.
why are you more focused on the military aspect? You had that before the military.
Because that was a key point to where I was really observing. Before the military, I didn't. My memory before then is very haze because I didn't have a lot of impacts to where I could go back and reflect on. That's why. So the military was a period to where actually I started. I can say I literally witnessed my own downfall, my rise and my downfall, like Egypt, just to rise again. I literally witnessed that. So, and that's when I was more focused on why is my life turning out this way? I was a golden child in, and now I'm not the golden child. So now I'm back at this bottom. So like, what do I do now? You can only rise again. Once you reach that I bottomed out, like you just back at the, well, it's time for me to rise again. And how I'm going to go about it. I said, I'm going to use unconventional means. I'm going to apply spiritual practices and get my own results and witness that for myself.
I am the phoenix that they speak of.
Say it one more time.
I am the phoenix that they speak of.
Phoenix. Death and resurrection. Yes. That plays a big lot. That plays a lot. I said a big lot. That actually plays a lot because, all right, so until you get to that level, you're going to experience, obviously, a lot of death. So the deaths will represent certain things falling off and you don't do anymore. It can be friends. It can be certain practices that you do spirituality. It's not just one thing. You're going to look at, better yet, let me best describe it. You used to like something and you don't like it no more. That's a death. The resurrection, you find in a new passion or that passion grows and expands. So when they start talking about death and resurrection, there's always going to be multiple ways to talk about it, but to narrow it down, you used to do this thing and you no longer have an interest in doing it. That's your spirit telling you it's time to let that go. That's all it is. It's time for us to go on to the next step. We understand that. That doesn't mean you might not revisit it. There's plenty of things I revisited with a better understanding based off newer knowledge. So that, hey, it comes with the game. Yeah, it really does. It comes with the game. Like there's been no linear straight path since I've been doing this. I done did oils, candles, to rituals, to baths, to talking to recent deceased ancestors, having contact with actual gods.
So like, what works for you?
Say again?
So it's literally what works for you.
Yeah, it's going to be what works for you because let's say if I'm good with oils, you might not be good with oils. You could just be good with candles. So then that means you go to town on candles. Like you find everything you can about candles and you use everything you can dealing with the candle. That goes from the basic, choosing the wick, choosing the jar, dressing the candle, anointing it, whatever. You do everything with that candle and know as much as you can about candle magic.
So when you're talking like dressing like the wick and everything, like how do you build candles? Like
it's not hard. Build it. Okay, so when you go to actually make your candle, all you need is some wax, and then from there you need a wick. So you're gonna just milk the wax, and then you're gonna have the wick. Now, it's a thing called. So what you want to do after you have your candle made, obviously, if you just whether you use color or not, keeping it straight and simple, you're gonna put your own energy into the candle. So if I was to make a candle for somebody and they wanted to have, let's say they wanted to communicate with their ancestors, what I do is, for starters, I go to my, I just talk to mainly my grandmother. I'm like, hey, look, we need to open the door or open the gateway for this person to talk to their ancestors and have them see it in their way. Then at that point, I grab the candle and I'll just I won't actually necessarily touch the candle, but I'll put my hands around the candle. And then, because that's another type of meditation. At that point, I'm transferring the intent and the energy of myself and that person and what they need out of that product into the candle, so that way they can have that experience. Because a lot of candles, you can go to a candle like a regular, like